Rabbi Moscowitz and Cantor Meisner, by chance, were recently in Israel at the same time. Rabbi Moscowitz and Cantor Meisner nourished and shaped the Zionist spirit of this congregation for decades. And so we are eager to hear their reflections about their recent time in Israel. Cantor Meisner will be sharing his reflections. I believe it's May 2nd. Our daily L'chaim will include Cantor Meisner's reflections. And next Shabbat we'll be celebrating his 80th birthday, by the way. So be sure to come for that. And today it is our pleasure to learn from Rabbi Moscowitz.
Thank you, Alberto. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you to Rabbi Splansky for your gracious invitation. And also, I need a larger tallis is what I need. And also, thank you to Cantor Lindy Rivers, to Rabbi Bereshal, I think I saw her in the back, Cantor Rosen. I don't see Rabbi Kay, to Rabbi McCarroll as well, and also to Rabbi Cantor Audrey Friedman, Audrey Kaufman. Why did I say Friedman? Rabbi Audrey Kaufman, and to Rabbi Cantor Aviva Reisky. It's good to be with you. If I've missed anyone, please tell me afterward. Or don't tell me, whichever you wish. Now, you know those college students at Columbia and elsewhere? The 20-year-olds with time on their hands and money in their pockets? The ones who want radical change and along the way to throw the Jews into the sea or elsewhere? I know them. I was once one of them, or at least I was very sympathetic to them, their crowd and their ideas, their third world loyalties. And even though I had spent the summer in Israel at age 18, within 2 years I had changed sides. I had joined the radical left. Do you remember hearing the chant in the streets back then, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, NLF is going to win? That was me. That was me and my very left-wing colleagues, anti-American colleagues, and we weren't just against America, we were dubious at best about Israel. And by the way, do you think we actually knew anything about Vietnam, except that maybe it was somewhere near Cambodia? And this is the early 70s, we were in our early 20s, we were the moral narcissists of the day. I don't know who made that phrase up. It's a very important phrase. But that's who we were, and that's what we see on campuses and elsewhere today. The Columbia crowd of today, I know them. I know their phony moral posturing. I know their toxic and morally blind narcissism. I know their sense of superiority, moral and otherwise. I know the intoxicating feeling of being with your gang and knowing that you are right and how clueless everyone else is. I was them. I thought my crowd and I thought we were the moral warriors of the day, about Vietnam, about America, about Israel. I was utterly certain of the rightness of our cause. Why? Because we were virtuous, and we knew what others didn't, and probably never would. And those who opposed us on any issue were, and remember, I'm in my early 20s, okay? If not immoral, then just plain wrong. Thank God for my wise parents, who, while very much against the Vietnam War, kept their mouths largely shut and faith in their 20-year-old son. I don't know that I ever adequately thanked them. In any case, If I was such a true believer, what changed exactly? Or more to the point, how did I change? Didn't happen overnight, but what did happen was this. And I rehearsed this not to virtue signal, but rather in hopes that some in today's river to the sea crowd might themselves wake up. 3 things changed me. 1, as discordant as this sounds, Tom Hayden changed me. The leader of the radical left, the anti-war left in the 60s and 70s and beyond, who died in 2016. I remained close with him until his dying days, actually. He made me, Hayden did, sit up straight and pay attention differently. And I mean it quite literally. I was part of Hayden's gang then, and in July or August of 1972, Hayden is invited to Paris by Madame Binh, the North Vietnamese leader then. He's there to represent the American anti-war movement, and returning to LA, Hayden is invited by Rabbi Leonard Bierman of Liobek Temple Alav HaShalom to speak at services on a Friday night upon his return. I never asked him why, but Tom said to me, "Why don't you come along to Liobek Temple?" Hayden, who grew up in the Detroit parish of the famously anti-Semitic Father Coughlin. So I'm sitting in the very shul which I would, in a few years, serve as a rabbinic intern, and whose rabbi, Sandy Reagans, who recently died, would eventually become my mentor and very close friend, and who sadly died but 2 weeks ago or so. Rabbi Splansky knew him as well. In any case, this is what happened. I remember it as if it was yesterday. I'm sitting there in the sanctuary with Tom Hayden in the back of the sanctuary. He's going to speak at the end. And I'm slumped over like a 20-year-old kid with too much attitude, literally slumped over as if to signal, I don't belong here. I look over at Hayden, who's to my left. He's sitting there ramrod straight, paying total attention, and I say to myself, something's wrong with this picture. And what was wrong was me. I immediately sat straight up. It was the first of many lessons that Tom Hayden taught me. The second matter that changed me was my father's integrity and lack of judgmental ways. He listened to me, to my rants. My brothers never read the books that I gave them, the anti-war books. Vietnam will win, all kinds of books like that. But my parents read them because they wanted to talk with me. And it was their, especially my father's patience and listening and integrity and lack of judgmental ways that also changed me. The third matter is more difficult to pin down, but I just grew up, partly because of Judaism, to be sure. I had some sense, beginning of a sense, that I was an heir to an ancient civilization, possessing wisdom that I lacked, and which was very much antithetical to the left, though I couldn't say exactly why. But I just knew, and I followed my instincts over some time. I wasn't alone in this regard, but I did come late to the realization. Or to put it differently, and you perhaps have heard me say this, I went to rabbinical school not to become a rabbi, but to learn what I hadn't learned growing up. There's more, of course, but these are the essential factors that over some time taught me to think differently from before. I worried less about the crowd or crowds and thought more about the extraordinary religious tradition that I had been born into, fortunately. And slowly, I paid more and more attention to that tradition, its ideas, and its best thinkers. In any case, all of this is background for how and why I woke up on Israel in specific in 1995. You perhaps have heard me say that the Jerusalem and Tel Aviv bus bombings by the Palestinian terrorists then, 95 and 96, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, elsewhere, combined with the evolution in my thinking, altered how I thought about the possibilities for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. I, who wanted peace as much as anyone, changed my mind. I knew that it couldn't and it wouldn't be. I wished it was otherwise, but it wasn't, and it isn't. Yes, there are Palestinians who think differently, who would love peace, but they're a very small minority. They have no power whatsoever, as we know better than ever today. One story which tells much. It's the summer of 1999. I'm walking up the Jerusalem seam with in effect, the area between what we would say is Israel proper and the West Bank. I'm walking up with seam with a rabbinic friend, someone for whom I've long respected, and I still do. And it happens that at that moment, as we're walking up the seam in the summer of '99, Ehud Barak, Yasser Arafat, Bill Clinton are then meeting at Camp David to finalize, we were told, an Israeli-Palestinian accord. As we walk up the Jerusalem seam, we're perhaps 100 yards or so from the King David Hotel. My friend turns to me and with a sweep of his hand to our left says confidently, "Everything to our left, that's Israel." And with a sweep of his right hand, he says, "And everything to our right, that's Palestine." I told this story before, and I'll tell it again. I knew my friend was wrong, fatally, and I use the word deliberately, fatally wrong. Now to October 7th. The world has changed, and it didn't happen on that awful day. We were awakened then, and by we I mean virtually all of us, myself very much included. Yes, I knew there wouldn't be peace, but I didn't know Israel would be faced, as it now is, with an existential battle for its existence. It took October 7th for that to happen. Most of us saw the world as we hoped it was beforehand, not as it actually was and is. But there were people who saw. You know, those early 20s border guards, I think all of them women, watching the border through binoculars, reporting to their superiors, yes, all males, saying, and this is in many months before October 7th, probably for a year or two, saying to their superiors, you know, something's up. We're just lowly, border watchers. You're the generals. You're in charge. You figure it out. But something is up. Nobody paid them any attention. There was one exception, a general who I think no longer has a job, Yisrael Bricker. Look his name up, Bricker. He said to his higher-ups, something is happening and there is going to be a huge rampage in Gaza by Hamas. He also was right. He also lost his job. I was in Israel. I skipped a paragraph. Here it is. These many months since that October day, our hearts are still stuck in our throats. And these many months later, those hostages who might be alive still, Hirsch Poland is a tease by the Palestinians. A brilliant tease, by the way. And Israel has no choice probably but to fall for that tease. But a tease it is. And one of the things we've learned is the huge error in underestimating the intelligence of your enemies. Huge. The Palestinian leadership has proved itself to be brilliant, and our leadership has been asleep at the wheel. In any case, I was in Israel last month for a couple of weeks, traveling with several rabbis. We visited a handful of kibbutzim and communities adjacent to the Gaza border, the ones decimated and left for ruin in October. One place stood for all the places, for all of Israel itself, you could say. Maybe better to say for all of Jews as a whole, and even those not Jewish who have stood with us. God bless their loving souls. The site, of course, is the Nova Festival, that barren, almost treeless patch of ground where many thousands of people, mostly young, but not all, came to celebrate amongst their friends, old and new. Celebrate, that is, until the dawn's light brought those who would slaughter and slay, rampage and rape, and do so with glee. The blood spilled then is long dry, but not the memory of the horror, certainly not the trauma, not of the raped and the brutalized, not of their families and friends, not of the Jews as a whole. I can't get the faces of the slain and hauled down to hell out of my mind. I imagine I never will. I don't want to, nor should anyone. So words don't suffice. But in their own way, memories do. Memories honor and sustain. They don't rectify, they don't make the broken whole, but they do something else. They help us to know. As we remember Kishinev and Majdanek and Babi Yar, we will remember Kfar Aza and Kibbutz Be'eri, the Nova Festival site, and more. The Nova Festival site will surely become a shrine of horror and of memory and of dedication to the innocent dead. And we should say, in fact, 6.5 or so months later, it already is a shrine, the Nova Festival site. One last matter, maybe the most important one. Oh, thank you. You always need a cantor like Cantor Rivers. You know why? Because you can't see your back, and you need people who have your back. Thank you. So one last matter. Maybe the most important one. My friends and I weren't only in decimated Israel. We also visited Jerusalem, or more precisely, the newest building in the country, ironically opened just weeks after October 7th. I speak of the extraordinary and extraordinarily beautiful new National Library of the State of Israel in the shadow of, but hardly overshadowed by, the Knesset itself. The symbolism is both sublime and stunning. The stunning citadel of books is a citadel to the history and ideas of our people, the great and enduring civilization of the Jews of Babylonia and of Rome, of Egypt and North Africa, of Lithuania, of America, Canada, and of Jerusalem, and no less of the destroyed communities which we will help to rebuild. It is a reminder that extraordinary building, that new library, that despite the unmitigated hell of Auschwitz ovens and the Gazan dungeons, that we are alive, we are heirs to our history, our ideas, our people, and obligated and honored, in fact, to stand proudly as Jews. We owe this more than ever to the dead as to the living, and as much as anyone, to Jews yet to be, whose legacy this is no less than our own. May it be so in our time and beyond. Thank you.